Welcome to Debating Dating, a podcast with me, Rachel Graham.
And me, Mark Jennings.
We're two single friends, and every episode we'll be discussing our differing perspectives on an aspect of modern dating.
We'll be sharing our honest insights and experiences as platonic pals who are not afraid to give each other the unvarnished truth.
Or laugh at each other's bullshit.
Today we're talking about shooting your shot. Shooting your shot, of course, the modern parlance for basically telling somebody that you fancy how you feel about them. Working up the courage to go up to that person in your work or your school or your uni, or maybe just somebody that you know in life outside of your occupation, and you go up and you've been thinking about them a lot and you tell them how you really feel, and does it go well or does it go badly? That is what we're after today. We're going to be discussing that in general. Rachel, shooting your shot, what's your thoughts on it?
I think it's something that we should all do more of. I think that I would really like to be the person to be like confident enough to just kind of do it. And I feel like there's loads of kind of success stories from it. However, I think that it all kind of depends on whether or not someone fancies you back, and there's nothing worse than shooting your shot and it doesn't go well, you know?
Exactly. And I'm surprised you say that, actually, because I think that probably it's always a bad idea.
For me, just me.
I think that it's like one of these things that, you know, like in rom-coms and stuff, it's always somebody shooting their shot. And by the way, see, shooting your shot, the phrase, right? That's like one of these things that's came in the last couple of years. It's like this pure, I don't know, is it like, to me, it's like pure Twitter chat or like Fiat 500 banter or something. These sort of words that come in, it's like, oh, shoot your shot, gal, you know, whatever. Like, but it used to just be like, nobody said that back in the day. It was just like, oh, I'm just going to go up to the lassie that I like and tell her how I feel. Or
do you
I don't know.
It's cheesy American. It's like, hey man, just go for it. Just shoot your shot.
It's so American that shoot. I think it's more like a basketball terminology. Shoot your shot, man. Hit the net or whatever. Like, put it through the net. And obviously we don't use it here, but it's just one of these things that's crept into the modern lingo because it's like a pure internet saying. Because like probably people don't even know what that means, to be honest. But like obviously young people, if you're online and stuff like that, you know. But no, I think it's like more of a thing that, you know, happens in Hollywood movies, and it's the sort of thing everybody thinks, you know, is a great idea, but actually I would imagine the vast majority of people who've ever tried to shoot their shot, it's probably backfired.
Yeah, or it's like a big romantic gesture. Like I love a romantic gesture and I'm all for it. So I feel like I shouldn't be discouraging it, but I do think it's very, very small amount of times that it kind of works out.
Because the thing about shooting your shot is though, right, it's never shooting a shot from, you know, the 6-yard line. It's always a fucking long shot. That's the only time people shoot their shot, when it's a fucking long shot and they've got no chance, basically. And occasionally a long shot goes in, right? Occasionally, but the majority of the time, you know, it hits the back of the wall. I don't know a basketball, but it doesn't go in the net, is what I'm saying.
It's the back of the wall.
It's whatever that thing is that's behind a basketball net.
Well, I was looking up like Urban Dictionary because I kind of put a thing on my Instagram kind of asking people about times that they've kind of shot their shot and stuff.
Yeah.
And loads of people didn't know what it meant. But I think that what I was kind of reading on Urban Dictionary was that as well, it's kind of like there's a time limit to it, or it's like you've only got one shot to do it. Like, so maybe it's like someone who is like recently single and it's like, right, it's just my time to kind of like shoot my shot or whatever. But loads of people were kind of telling of times that for the most part, it did kind of work out. I think that I think I would only do it if I kind of got a good enough vibe. It's all about vibes.
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? Because you say that as a female who can pick up on vibes, whereas there's a lot of guys out there who will be given clear signs that the girl is not into them, and they will not pick up on that, and they will turn up at their work with a bunch of flowers and they'll get a fucking restraining order put out for them.
I think I'm bad for like, I won't put myself out there, but I will make it very fucking obvious that I'm into someone. And I feel like it's just constantly kind of like that waiting game of me being like, this is me giving you a sign, and this is me also saying that it's okay, and this is me doing that, and you have to kind of
Yeah.
wait. And then someone's like, oh, I didn't know if you liked me. And I'm like, how could I make it any more obvious, you know?
Well, that's sort of like because there's that sort of pressure on like women to sort of have to have the guy make the first move, which I think, by the way, is because there's like so much more pressure on like a woman, because like basically women are what guys are meant to want, right? Yous are what we are meant to want. So it's like if you like the guys are meant to be coming up to you in the bar or whatever and chatting you up, right? And you're meant to be kind of, you know, picking and choosing who you want. But if you decide to go up to a guy, right, like the dream come true for the guy, and he says no and he rejects you, that is a level of rejection that is really difficult to take. It would be like if a famous person came up to you in a bar and went, all right, mate, do you want a picture of me? And you went, nah, fuck off, mate, who do you think you are? That's what it's like for a woman to try and chat up a guy. So I understand why it is changing. And obviously, I mean, it would make my life a lot simpler if I, you know, never had to instigate things and girls would just come up to me. And obviously it does happen. But like some guys get annoyed at the fact that like, oh, why do we always need to date? And I'm like, well, it's cause like, you know, there's a lot more to lose for girls by getting that sort of rejection than I think there is for guys, because it's sort of just par for the course. It's like, you know, if you're a guy, you go up to a lassie and you sort of chat her up and she sort of blows you off, you're kind of like, oh, well, you know, I kind of expected that.
I think it's good that it's changing. Like the amount
Absolutely.
of people that I've spoken to who are like, fuck it, I'm just going to do it. And
Yeah.
and that's who I definitely want to be. And I think that it's now becoming more and more common. And I think if more like of us women are kind of like, do you know what? Like, I'm just going to put myself out there. Cause I used to stand at the bar and like deliberately go up and get rounds of drinks if there was someone hot or whatever. And I'd like stand at the bar and I'd be very like open. I'd be like looking around being like, I'm open for you to start a conversation with me. And I'm like, why wasn't I having the conversation myself?
That's your one tactic, is just to give the guy proximity and just sort of look at him every now and again and be like,
you can
see if you can catch eyes. I mean, I've locked eyes with him 4 times. Like, why isn't he coming over? It's like, what, I have done everything I can possibly do here. There's absolutely nothing left. But that's kind of what it is. It's like, you know, you've kind of got to get the eyes and hope the guy's smart enough to click on and walk over. But the funny thing about that is, from the other side, right, is like, so see if, you know, you're a guy at a bar and like you kind of keep clocking the eyes. Well, actually, sometimes you can go 2 ways. You can either assume like, oh, she's into me, I should probably go over, or you might be thinking like, maybe she's just looking at me going, why the fuck does this guy keep looking at me?
I feel like this is our beautiful moment together.
I'm like, oh my God, I'm just going to stop looking at her because I'm probably creeping her already. I don't want to get chucked out of this place.
That's happened so many times. See, when we'd spend like lots of fringes together, me and you, is the amount of times that
Edinburgh
I would turn
Festival.
into you. The Edinburgh Festival. The amount of times
for the layman, just in case somebody doesn't know. So like, why the fuck you talk about your hair or whatever?
No. So times that we'd hang out at the Edinburgh Fringe, the amount of times that we'd be like, be really late at night or whatever, and we'd all be drunk and blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, I am making it so obvious to this guy and he's not picking up on it. And you'd be like, you need to just kind of realize that not everyone picks up on things as easy.
Yeah.
And I'd always be like, but it's so obvious.
I know. But I do think that like you know, guys just don't pick up on these non-verbal cues or whatever as well as I think women sort of do instinctively or whatever it is. Yeah. But we just only wired that way. We literally need a lassie to come up to us and like look us in the eye and go, I am into you. Do something about it, because otherwise a lot of guys are just fucking not, including myself. I've probably, you know, passed up some opportunities, but I've also probably assumed people were into me and then been completely wrong. So it's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell.
Too. I'm like, oh well, he's liked my picture, so obviously he really fancies me.
Yeah, I think sometimes as well, like you can read too much into the non-verbal cues. You know what I mean? You sort of see what you want to see. Sometimes I think that's true of just life. Yeah. But I think that guys definitely are quite bad, I think, for sort of picking up the vibe in terms of that.
Yeah.
So obviously you'd been to your social media. We've got a few contributions that we're going to kick off this week's episode with. So we've got this first one, which is a voice note that we're going to play now.
So a few years ago, I was at Transmit Me and my friend absolutely steaming. I phoned my mum, see if she'd come pick us up, give us a lift home. And of course, being steaming, we asked her to take us to McDonald's. So I've ordered at McDonald's, and me and the guy that's serving us banter back and forward, having a good laugh. He says to me, "Anything else?" And I said, "Aye, your number, please." And he goes, "That'll be £9.79, please." And my mum just looked at me. She was ashamed. Aye, so.
Well, a story of modern romance there. At the drive-through of McDonald's in Annie's Land or wherever the fuck it was.
But how good would that have been if like he'd given the number, and then that'd be such an interesting meet cute.
And they'll probably get the sack.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
See, honestly though, right? Like that's the sort of stuff that, like, see when that happens again. The naughty, this is me always bringing it back to this men v women outdated thing that I've got, right? But I do think it is true that like guys don't really get like harassed at work a lot, right? For want of a better word, but like if you're a lassie that works in a shop or something like that, you'll probably have had it's just kind of par for the course that guys will come up and ask for your number or something. That probably happens to everybody, right? But it doesn't happen so much to guys as much, right? So see if it ever kind of does happen like that way that's just been described. That guy probably just thought she was on the wind up. Like,
yeah, you're kind of like, yeah, especially if you're drunk as well, because you're kind of thinking, oh, like,
yeah,
all that kind of stuff.
and also, I mean, if she was like steaming at like 3 a.m. at McDonald's drive-thru, he's probably like, "No, you're all right, hen."
But do you not think it's more that you'd be like, well, she might not like think about it in the morning, like, do you know what I mean? She might be like, oh God, like I hope he doesn't text me or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But it is funny that like, so I was walking, I think it might have actually been earlier than 11 o'clock in the morning, maybe 10 or something. And I was wearing no makeup, I was just walking along the street, and this guy like pulled up beside me, and he was like, oh, do you know where like Great Western Road is or whatever? And I was like, oh yeah, it's literally just that road there. Like,
yeah.
I was like pointing to it.
Do you think that's a thing guys do, by the way? Do you think guys just randomly stop women and ask for directions that they know the answer to?
Well, this is the thing, because I was so taken aback at like real live interaction. Do you know what I mean? Of someone actually pulling over when I was like a pedestrian. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, like he was like a young, like he was probably about similar age to me, like quite like handsome. And he was just like, oh, I actually know where Great Western Road is. I just wanted to speak to you. And I went like that. My heart started beating, and I was like that. This is so weird. This is so weird. And then I was thinking, oh, but he was actually really attractive. And so I was thinking, fuck, whatever I do now, I might get kidnapped, or I might be like chatting to my like next husband. Not next husband, my only husband. And it was so weird. I was like that. I honestly was like, my heart was beating, and he was like, do you want to give me your number? And I was like, oh, I don't know. I'm going to the doctor's. He was like, all right, well, you could like, he was like in his car. He was like, you could come and give me your number. And then I was thinking, right, if I go up to him, he's going to like pull me into the car and like steal me. So I just was like, oh no, like, I was like, no, if it's meant to be, it'll happen naturally. And then I was thinking, he was 100% either shooting a shot or was gonna like kidnap me. But it was that thing. But I still think about that, and I'm like, shit, did I do the wrong thing?
And isn't that interesting though? Because there's such a fine line between the most romantic thing that's ever going to happen to you in your life and it's just creepy as fuck and potentially dangerous. That is, and the thing is, right, like that guy, he either was just like, to be honest, that sounds a wee bit like, it sounds like he was probably just driving about looking for lassies to get him. Like, it's weird that would just happen.
At 10 in the morning, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know, but like, if that's not the case, right, and he was just legit and he's just like, oh my God, there's, the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Like, then he thought that he was doing the most romantic thing possible, right? He thought he was Ryan Gosling hanging off the Ferris wheel in The Notebook or whatever film it is.
Yeah.
And then you see him and you're just like, am I going to get kidnapped and murdered here? What the hell is going on? And that is the weird fine line there is between guys trying to shoot their shot and coming across as romantic and working out, and like, it just being like an absolute most embarrassing thing for them and the woman that they're chatting up, or the man or whoever. But honestly, like it's weird because the hardest part about it is, right, see, if you're going to shoot your shot, you just never know which one it's going to turn out as. It's either going to be, as I say, the most romantic thing ever, or it's going to probably be the most embarrassing moment in your life, and you're going to feel like an absolute idiot.
I think there was elements of, I didn't trust that happening. One, because of the time in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was like going to the doctor and I wasn't like wearing makeup, like, so I didn't have the confidence to be like, well,
It's
obviously
a
I'm
weird time to get chatted up, innit?
Yeah, so if I was on a night out, I would have been like, yeah, definitely. Like, he was pure handsome, and anyway. But then, because I didn't have the confidence in my own appearance, I was going, right, there's something sinister here. And I think as well with him, because he was attractive, I was more likely to kind of trust him, which is really bad because, like, who knows, like, you can be attractive and still be a murderer or whatever.
Absolutely.
But if it was someone kind of weird, I would have kind of been like, oh, that makes more sense, because they, like, it was just a bit kind of.
Aye, well, that's probably another thing as well. Like, see, looks probably get you a long way in terms of those types of interactions. If you're a young and relatively good looking person, and you do, a thing like, it's kind of like, oh well, I was flattered, but when it's like some mad old creepy guy for your work or whatever that's like trying to make the moves on you and the work night out, then you're like, oh my god, like, but in his head he doesn't realize that's the way as he sees himself as like, oh yeah, why shouldn't we be together?
I know.
So it's a weird one.
We'll never know what happened.
I know.
I got a few really nice ones sent to me of things like times where it worked out, and it was all of those ones were like women saying like, asked a friend of my brother's out and we're together now. Or someone else said that they'd like said to their boss, but like they waited till they left their work and then said to their boss that they liked them and didn't think that it was like reciprocated, and it was, and now they've been together for like 4 years. So I do think it's worth it. You should just go for it.
I think it is, right, because see, to be honest, there is nothing more exciting than when you really, really like somebody and you just go, right, I'm going to text them. And you know what I mean? Do you ever text somebody like that, and then you text, and then you're so scared of what you've just done, like you throw away your phone. I don't want to see it. I don't want to know if they've read it. I don't want to see the reply. Like, I'll just go away for the phone. You'll leave the phone for ages, and then you're like too scared to check to see.
You put it on full volume. I put it on full volume because I'm like, right, if I don't look at it, I'm not waiting for a reply. But if I put it on full volume, I'll hear it, and I'll be like,
no, I wouldn't be brave enough to do that. I would get a fight in my life about, oh my god. It's fight or flight, isn't it? It's like you're either, your dreams are going to come true or not. Like, it's funny that when you message somebody that you've liked for a while and you're like, right, this is it, and then it goes one way or the other, and
it's so awkward and it doesn't work though, and you're like, I think I've done that a few times, mainly when I'm drunk, and then I'm just like, I have made this situation extremely awkward.
I know, but do you know what? Like, I think everybody has been on at least one side of it. Probably both,
I would say.
Probably both, innit? Like, we've all been the person that shot their shot and sent the message and hoped for the best, with somebody that they liked. And then we've all been the person that's maybe received one and been a bit like, oh God, how am I going to let this person down? Oh dear. Oh no. And occasionally you're the person that receives one and you're like, oh, brilliant, like, great. So I think that's it definitely does, it does work out, and it's sort of it's what makes life interesting, isn't it? Going for these things.
Yeah, totally.
For me though, it's like, I remember one time, right? I was sort of dating this girl. We'd only been on like a couple of dates, and I think honestly, right, you sort of know. I think you instinctively know, and it's like, see that way if you feel like, if you can't be yourself and you're trying to sort of change or trying to like present the best possible version of yourself, because you think that maybe they're a bit out your league or whatever it is, right? Then when you start sort of modifying your behaviour for all that to try and kind of, because if you just like, because you just want to get with them. And I remember one time I was like texting this girl, I was sort of seeing it, I sort of get the vibe she wasn't as into it and stuff like that. And I remember she texted me, and I was thinking to myself, like, I was like, right, should I text her back? I'll wait and like not text her for a while, and play hard to get and all that sort of stuff. But then it's like, but what if I don't text her? and then someone else texts her, and then I've missed my chance. Oh my God. And I was going back and forth in my mind with that. And then I realized, I was like, do you know what? There's no right answer here to this, because I just care too much, and I'm not being authentic. I'm not being myself. I'm just trying to like second guess what she's going to think and all that. And when you get into that mindset, you're onto a loser, you know, whether or not
playing games never works out, because you shouldn't have to play games at all.
Yeah, but it's not even playing games. I think it's like, if you're feeling so kind of like, if you're feeling like, usually that comes from a place where you are sort of feeling that the other person's not that into it, but you just don't want to admit it to yourself, you know? Yeah. So you're like, so you go, all right, oh, you know, what can I do to, you know, like what sort of move, what tactic, what sort of trick can I play here to try and keep them interested? And I mean, I'm sure that can work sometimes, but like, you know, it's probably not the best sort of sign going forward, you know, if they're already a bit on the fence with it. Like, if that's the feeling, then you're better just kind of going, I'm probably better just moving on here, you know?
Yeah, my friends, I've had a lot of that this past week, actually, where you're like, oh, he's not, like, he's taking ages to reply, and I don't want to like wait to reply.
Yeah.
And my friend always says that when you get a message, if you're by your phone, you should just read the message and just reply how you would like naturally reply, because that's your first thought, and your first response is how your brain is, and that is who you are as a person. So just kind of do it.
Absolutely. And that's a thing you do as well, don't you? You'll sometimes go to do that, and then you'll sort of go, oh no, I shouldn't say that. And then you overthink it, and then it just comes out weird anyway.
Yeah.
And it's weird how over text, even like, you know, you're not even in the same, you know, actual physical space as someone, and the person can still tell when you're like that, that there's something, you know, that you're a bit too nervous, or you're not really being yourself or something. You can still tell over text and all that sort of stuff, even in the time it takes to reply, just that you can piece it together. You get a sort of sixth sense for when something's not quite right. And so that's why you've, as hard as it is, you've kind of just got to sort of, you've got to just be authentic and be true to yourself, and let the chips fall where they may.
And they don't like you. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
You can't really change that.
100%. But that being said, it still doesn't take the sting out the tail when you do, you know, go for the shot, and then, you know, you miss spectacularly. But again, at least you can sort of live with yourself that you gave it a bash.
Yeah, you're not going to be on your deathbed like, oh, I didn't tell them.
You mentioned you've got some positive ones to read out, but you've sent me one that you received. I've not seen this yet, so I'm going to read this out. So this is another submission that we've got here, about the subject of shooting your shot. So here we go.
So before you do, this person really liked this person, and then they shot their shot, and then this is what happened.
So he says that fired into this Liverpudlian guy, already a mistake straight away, by the way.
Whoa. We don't want to make any enemies. We love Liverpool. Listen.
I just want to make enemies with the entire male population of Liverpool. Come on then, you fucking bastards. What are you going to do? Oh, my nan's in all bed. Right, that's all I ever say.
Liverpool.
No, come on. Love Liverpool. Great city. Great.
Listen to us. Spread the word.
Please listen to us. Yeah, please. Please have us do a live show at Hot Water when things can happen again. Anyway, Liverpudlian guy in sub club, went home with him, shagged him, and when we were done, he just rolled over and very casually smoked some heroin off the tin that a pineapple tart comes in. Wow. I'm amazed that they just had that lying around. That's incredible.
Yep.
So he's smoking heroin off a tin. Imagine just somebody just smoking heroin.
I knew you'd be appalled. I mean, I am too, but I love that you're like appalled by this. Also, I think it's so funny that this is one of my friends. I would be
quite put off if somebody had a cigarette after sex. Now, I'm not going to lie.
Like, excuse me, my body's a temple.
What do they say with the smacks? Like, do you want a draws? Like, no, I'm trying to stay off it, mate. Oh my God. So she says, pure hilarious, because the reason I shagged him in the first place was he was just enough like 2007 Pete Doherty to make me feel horny in a really nostalgic way. Serves me right going to sub club. So maybe it was just maybe it was just Pete Doherty. It was just an older version of him. This guy really looks like Pete Doherty in 2017. Just a lot more disheveled and like he's had about another decade's worth of heroin. Let's have sex with him. Oh my God, he's smoking heroin in my bed. Who could have seen this coming? This is absolutely...
Yeah.
What a story. Oh my God. Well, that is another occupational hazard of shooting your shot, is that, you can end up realizing that, what you thought you wanted wasn't what you were actually after.
Yeah, it's like when you go for something and you're like, this isn't really what I signed up for.
Yeah. I also see this person has also messaged that she also recently shagged a flat earther. So a real good track record there. I mean, that is the, you're going for the absolute top class guys there, aren't you? Heroin addict, flat earther, a QAnon and a, alt-right Nazi, and then you get the whole package.
Yeah, so funny. Right, so shall I read you this one?
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay, so when me and my friend were like 17, 18, we would go to the gym and use the weight section and fancied like every guy that was there. We didn't know their names, so made up stupid nicknames for them all. We ended up meeting them on nights out, so got to know them a bit more. Then on one night out, after a few months, a guy my friend really fancied told her he wanted to pump her. Okay, so...
Yeah, which is the common sort of way I would imagine that some guy from the gym would say it. See the iron? I'm sick of pumping that. I want to pump you instead.
Okay, so later on, when steaming, she was messaging me saying, "Oh my God, Demon Eyes," his nickname. He had dark brown eyes.
That's all right. That's I thought you said demonize, as in like we've demonized this person.
Oh no,
so,
Demon Eyes.
Yeah.
So that's his nickname. Said
Sounds
he
like a
wants
good
to
guy.
pump me. Yeah, right. So she's like messaging her pal like, "Demon Eyes wants to pump me." Turns out she was messaging him on Facebook instead of me. He replied, "What?" And she said, "Scroll up. Joe Smith said he wants to pump me!" ! Then she realized what she had done and said to him she thought she was messaging me. So not only did she message him buzzing he wanted to pump her, she outed us as obvious creeps, making up such a weird nickname for him, and in the end they never pumped.
Oh my God.
So it didn't even work out because fucking Demon Eyes.
That's weird that like the guy would like decide not to shag her just because she called him a weird nickname. And if you got a message from the girl like excitedly talking about you wanting to shag her, surely that's like
but
a good thing.
Like, imagine it was like something. Imagine he was pure like para about his eyes, and they're like calling him Demon Eyes. Do you want to know who? So that's our kind of story. So have you kind of gone for it? Like, have you done a pure big shooting your shot gesture?
I've had a few times where like it's maybe been somebody like I was mentioning earlier on, like it's like somebody that I've been kind of seeing a wee bit and I was really into and they weren't into me, and then it's kind of like doesn't really work out. But I think the one thing that springs to mind is I remember it was a girl I used to work with, and I remember she was emailing me about something. She was like running. She was like, because it's an office, like office email, and she'd emailed me about some event or something that was running, and I didn't know it was her, but I'd seen it because when you work in like an office where you're in different teams and stuff like that, you don't know people's names, right? So I knew her to see, and then I was emailing this person, I don't know who it was, and I realized it was her. And we got chatting and stuff like that. And then I was like, oh, and then I think like, I can't remember what I said, but I remember sort of like emailing. And I remember at the time thinking like, this is pure stupid. But then again, I got caught up in like the whole thing of like, oh, well, like, oh, she's really lovely. And, maybe, this would be like, maybe it'll work out and it'll be great. And I don't know. Sometimes you get in weird points of your life where you just, you think like, I'm going to do some big romantic gesture, you get a bit carried away with your emotions, I think. But I ended up just emailing on the work, like not inappropriately or anything, but I think I just said, maybe it was during, like at the end of the conversation or whatever. And it wasn't a work related email. It was like a work night out or something, I think, or something that she was wanting me to do because of stand up or something like that. It was something like that.
It was cash.
Like a social event outside the work, right?
Yeah.
We were messaging about. And then I remember like going like, oh, like, oh, do you fancy getting a drink or something like that sometime? And just I don't even know if she replied. I can't remember. But then I used to just see her like in the
Oh,
hallway every now and again and stuff like that. And honestly, there is nothing worse, by the way, than just like working with somebody that you've like never shoot your shot in work is what I would say. Because if it doesn't happen, you just need to see that person every fucking day, and it's an absolute nightmare.
yeah,
I think but I think it's rare because I think when I was like younger, I was like totally pure into the whole romantic sort of thing, and like, you know, and then I sort of quickly realized kind of like, oh well, you know, like if it sort of seems like, you know, it's a pure one-sided thing, and there maybe, you know, it would be a big long shot, then it's probably not worth you know, the risk of taking it, because
yeah,
it's not going to go on. I do remember one time I nearly sent this, right. It was like this girl that I used to kind of see when I was younger, I guess, and like I was really into her, and I was like always trying to get back with her after we'd sort of went out for a while when we were young.
yeah,
And I remember we were all about going, like me and my mates were all going on holiday, and like some of her mates who were like kind of going out with my mates were all going as well, and like she wasn't going. And I remember like, and we'd sort of split up or something, like not long before it. And I remember like I wrote this big massive long thing, like telling her how I felt and all this sort of stuff. And I was sitting with my mate, we were waiting on to go to the airport, and then I was just like, nah, there's no point. And I just never sent it. And I was so glad I never, because it
oh.
would have been embarrassing if I did.
See, I'm a big fan of a big lengthy declaring your love. Like I feel like that's prime teenage me being like, just one day they'll send me like paragraphs of everything that they like about me and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
But you're saying that is someone, you're thinking of someone that you
You're like,
want to sending you that. But
yeah,
if it's some guy and you're kind of like, oh, do you know what? Oh, God, you know, we kind of went on a couple of dates, but I don't really like him anymore. And he's still
yeah.
clinging on and that sort of stuff. And then he sends you a big thing. Then, you
Then
know,
you'd be
you're going
like,
to be like,
oh,
exactly. So that would, that would have been me. That would have been me. I would have been the guy that she's like, oh, for God's sake, and sending the big paragraph, and then like, you know, having to have a go. "Oh." So
yeah,
I sort of, it's hard. I think that's the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing to admit. See, when you're really into somebody, it's hard to admit to yourself that they don't feel the same way about you. If you've kind of convinced yourself, that's sort of this thing about the one and all that sort of stuff. You know, if you've convinced yourself that you are meant to be together, then you will not accept that to them. You might just be like somebody they're not that into.
that you're not the main character.
You're not the main character in their, you know, life sort of thing. You've made
Yeah.
them the main character in your life rather than yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't handle the fact that you're not even in, you know, you're not even an extra in theirs. Do you know what I mean? You're not even, and that is sometimes the case. But the thing is, you've got to be the main character in your own life, and that's the only thing. No one else is a protagonist but you. You can have a, you know, you can have a female lead or a male lead, or, you know, a couple of
Yeah.
leads if you
A
know, you're
series
polyamorous,
regular.
a
Yeah.
series regular, you know, an ensemble cast sometimes.
You're just showing off now.
But you know, in general, like, you know, again, it's coming back to that thing. If you start worrying too much about what they think over you, you kind of just, sometimes it's better to just cut your losses and move on. And
Yeah.
but so for me, like, that's the ones that spring to mind. Like the most embarrassing one, I think, was probably the email thing in the work, and then just not getting back. And I was like, oh God, like, you know, it's always that thing as well. Like if you ever send like the double text and you don't hear back,
And you know not to send the double
you
text.
know, everyone knows not to send a double text, but when you do it, it's like, you know, last gasp attempt here.
It's the
Let's
nail in the
see what
coffin.
happens. Final roll of the dice. But there you go. So that's
Yeah.
me. There's probably been times it's kind of worked out. They don't really spring to mind as much now, I guess. But like,
They're not as fun though. Like the times
not
it
as
works, like, oh, I'm
fun.
very happy for you.
Yeah. And if they had, you know, if I had a time that it really worked out, you know, I wouldn't be fucking single now. So
I'm doing this podcast.
exactly. I'd be out there. Just I wouldn't need a debate date, and I'd just be
You'd just be doing it.
be
But
happy to just chill.
I think like there's been so many times where I think I've done it, but because I was thinking about the times that I've done it, because I think that and I've spoken to my flatmate a lot about this, was just the fact that I think I'm a what's the word? Like I put things in place. Do you know what I mean? So I like to I like to plant seeds. Like I like to kind of be like, okay, so this is what I would like. So I'm putting this out here, and they need to pick up on that, and then I'm also putting this here so that if they went for that, they wouldn't feel embarrassed and all
Is
that.
that what's the difference between that and playing games though?
I do think there is a difference, right? Because I think I've played games in the past, and I don't think I play games anymore, like for the most part,
I think it's
because
you're trying to set up a game. Sorry.
I think yeah, I'm like laying out the Monopoly
You're
board.
trying to get a game going.
Yeah, I think like now that I've kind of realized, you know, that kind of thing of like, if someone wants to make something happen, they will. So like, there's no point in being like, what do you think this text means? Like, do you think they want to see me? Like, if they want to see me, they'll like make it happen type thing. So I think I don't think I played games anymore, but I do think, yeah, I like to kind of set up being like, okay, so this is okay, and I'm kind of like putting that, or you know, when you kind of like tell people things, I've been like, listen, this is it's kind of just like making the guy feel comfortable enough to kind of shoot their shot, I suppose. So kind of like lining up everything.
You're giving them the assist for the shot, basically.
I'm putting the little like golf tee in.
And getting the cross in.
Yeah, because every time that I've kind of actually properly gone for it, it's just when I've been really drunk, and it's like, I think it's okay. Do you know what I mean? Because you're drunk, you can just be like, oh, do you know what? Like, it didn't happen, but
5-3 pool sort of thing.
Maybe not 5-3 pool, but yeah, that kind of thing. But yeah, like, and that would just be on a kind of night out thing. But there was one time when I was in college, and it's so embarrassing. So like, I fancied this guy, and I'd like this was at drama school as well. So yeah, and I'd fancied this guy for a while, and I remember being like, right, tonight is the night that I'm just gonna tell him, like, I'm like, we got on, and I was like, I'm gonna at some point in the night just be like, can we go out into the close and just chat? And then basically I took him out to the close, and I was like, listen, like, I need to tell you something. And he immediately was like, oh, and I was like, oh no. But I was so drunk that I wasn't picking up on it as much. I was like, no, he must like me back. He must like me back. So, because we like had a good jokes and stuff like that. So I was thinking, do you know what? Good vibes. But then obviously I didn't pick up on the clear vibe that he was like, oh, and I was like, listen, I just need to tell you something. And I remember being quite drunk, so I was constantly being like, I need to tell you something, I need to tell you something. And he's like, Rachel, why don't we just go back inside? And I was like, no, listen, like, I need to just tell you tonight. And then he was just like, no, do you know what? Oh, I think someone's calling us. Like, we should go inside.
Because he knows what's coming. It's not, what else are you going to be telling him? It's like, right, there's a secret conspiracy by the government, and the earth is actually flat. And do you want to hit this heroin?
Pineapple tart heroin. So I was like, listen, and I think I went to kind of say to him, and he was like, oh, like someone's just buzzed or whatever, and he like went back inside. So I don't think I actually shot my shot, but I think he 100% knew that I was about to shoot my shot.
Your shot was blocked?
It was blocked. Wing defense.
Oh my God.
But then years went by, like, he went down to a drama school in London, and it turns out he's gay. So I'm like so glad that I didn't actually shoot my shot, because he wasn't out, and also he would have just been like, oh fuck, you're so wrong that you think I fancy you, Rachel. That
makes sense though, because like, it's a bit harsh to not let someone even say it, but obviously you would have been opening up a big can of worms for him as well, and like, he's like, oh God, would I need to like come out to you, or you know, he would need to try and make up some excuse, and he's like, I don't even know what I would say, because like, I'm not, like, if he's not straight, he's like, what? How do I tell a woman I don't like her without, you know, her not like saying the wrong thing, or you know, that sounds convincing, you know, like, so. I suppose there's a bit of solace in that as well. It's like, at least there.
I know, but I'm so embarrassed to this day whenever I see him.
Whenever you see him?
Whenever I see him in, like, he's in big fancy shows, and I'm like, oh, remember that time I took you into the close?
Well, I know. I guess it's a weird one, isn't it? Like, because you never, like, there's no living it down, really, is there? Like, there's no.
Pretty much like, do you like the way I look and my entire personality? No.
Yeah. Well, that's, you know, that's another thing to do with rejection and stuff like that. But I think the thing with shooting your shot is you basically, you need to make the decision of like, it's like, there's no going back now. Do you know what I mean? It's like the point of no return. It's like, after I do this, like, there's no bones about it. It's like, no, that way if you work with somebody or, you know somebody and you flirt or whatever and you think, oh, something might happen one day. And maybe sometimes you just like the sort of idea of it. And it's maybe, but then, if you really want to try and make something happen that just when they work or whatever, but it's a nice idea, having, somebody that you flirt with a bit or whatever. But as soon as you shoot your shot, you're making that real. And it's like, this is either a thing, it's something's going to happen, or it's absolutely not going to happen. And if it's, and there's no going back from that. So you never can, like, so you either go, oh, like, shot my shot and, it turned out well and we had fun or whatever, or we ended up in a relationship, or it's like, she turned me down, or he turned me down, and, and that's it. And then anytime you see that person, you both know that's what happened. And,
and I think you can turn someone down by not even, like, you don't even need to say that you don't like them, but you just kind of swerve it, don't you?
Well, that's really that's really the only way to deal with it when somebody shoots your shot and you're not reciprocating it.
So you think that you can't just communicate like, listen, I don't.
I mean, you can say that, but who the fuck does?
Just a big sociopath, like, I don't like you.
No, here are the reasons why I will never find you attractive. Like, it's just, you can't say. That's why, like, so much, like, that's why, everybody moans about, oh, they, not getting texts back and getting ghosted and, all these types of things, right? Or like, oh, why can't you just be upfront about how you feel? All that sort of stuff, right? The reality is, it's too hard to be honest. The truth fucking hurts, right? And if you were really to just say to somebody, look, I'm not interested, for this, that, and the other reason, right? And fucking told them really what you were thinking, and you were telling your pals that you didn't like about them and all that stuff. It'd be fucking horrific. So we need to lie to each other to stop from hurting each other's feelings.
Also, do you not think that you forget about the times that you do it to someone? Like, you really remember the times that you've put yourself out there, but then, like, there'll be times where someone will do it to you and you're like, oh, that was really nice. And, like, obviously don't, like, feel it back, but blah, blah. And then you forget about it. But it's like, when it's you, you're like, ah, my life.
Absolutely. Well, it's always, it goes back to that thing about, like, being on somebody's radar or in their cast or whatever, because, like, the reality is, like, if you're, like, shooting your shot with somebody you really like, it's like, to you, it's this big deal. But if somebody that you kind of don't really think that much about, just no, like, you don't think much of them, but it's like, if there's somebody that just, you're not
crossed your mind.
Yeah, you're not like, you don't see them as a, potential partner or whatever. If they sort of, ask you out or whatever and you're not into it and you sort of brush it off or you say no or whatever it is, like, yeah, you just then kind of go about your day and you probably don't think about it more. But that person will either, like, keep thinking about it and being gutted over it, or they'll forget about it, but they'll remember when they see you.
And then it'll be really fucking awkward.
Yeah, but there's a weird dynamic that, and but as the person that's sort of not, like, sometimes you want to just be kind of like be sound as you can be to them, because you're like, oh, how's it going? Like, I don't think you're a bad person. I just, like, I still, I want to be friendly, but no, I just didn't want to, shaggy or go with you or whatever. Like, and that's fine, because there's nothing you can do about that, really. Is you can't help the way you feel, which again, something we'll get into in another episode, I think, in more detail. But that's what it is. But any further thoughts on shooting your shot? Then, has anyone ever shot their shot with you?
Yes. What a question.
Has anyone ever done it successfully? Like, to a relationship point, probably.
No. Right. Anytime they've shot their shot. Is that true? I don't think so. I feel like anytime it's happened, it's probably been online. I think. Yeah, it's happened to me.
Which is really, that is the slide into the DM is the shoot your shot. That's the modern shooting your shot into. That's the modern going up to somebody in a bar. Is you send that DM, and again with a DM, like, there's no going back. And even if it's, it's meant to be a bit innocuous, like, it could be, you're like, replying to their story or whatever it is. Yeah, you're still sliding into their DMs one way or the other, aren't you?
Yeah, I think the times that's happened to me, so I worked behind the bar at the stand, and also I've been working behind the bar before lockdown and stuff.
Yeah.
So like that's obviously happened in work a few times. I used to get annoyed though because worked with a girl who was a lesbian, and she would always get people giving her their number, and she was really always quite mad and grumpy and like hated the customers, and I'd be going about like, hi, can I get you anything to and then people would be
Yeah.
like giving their number, and I'd be like, I want a number.
But that's why a bar person is such a attractive, because they're at work and they're miserable and they're like, you know, they're always distracted by what they're having to do and serve people. Like they seem very coquettish and very like aloof to you. So it's like, oh my God, if only I could get their attention. Whereas you were probably too friendly that they're like, you know, I got my wee dopamine hit from that interaction there. Whereas if you'd been a bit more standoffish, they'd been like, I'm gonna show her, you know.
Well, it's like tips. Like sometimes if I was like really going out my way, I would get good tips. But there was also like someone who worked in that bar who honestly was like hating life, and he'd get just as good tips as me, if not better, just because he obviously seemed like he was hating it. But yeah, no, the times that it's happened, it's happened a few times with you when we were at the Fringe. When do you remember we were doing a show with our sketch group, and there was like another sketch group, and then one of the guys was like firing in and was like, oh, we've matched on things, and look at us. Or I don't even know if we'd matched. I think he was like, oh, I've seen you on the things or whatever. But then it was so awkward because we were there every day for a month, and I obviously like wasn't interested, so it was that kind of thing.
And he'd brought it up that he's had matched or whatever, and then you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, and nothing's, you know, going to happen here.
That's the end of the story.
But that's like going back to that thing about like basically having to see somebody every day. Like if you shoot your shot with somebody you work with, that was effectively that, wasn't it?
Yeah, totally. And it's so awkward. I think that whenever it's kind of successful, I think I don't let someone shoot their shot, in the sense of like, I was thinking back to when I was a teenager, and you know, when you'd be on like MSN all the time to like, to people that you liked. And like, I used to tell myself that if we were on MSN beyond 2 a.m, that they must like me back. So like I had that in my head. So I remember being like, right, well, he stayed up all night to talk to me, and we're talking and it's like beyond 2 a.m. So he must like me. And I think that then that could have gone into a thing, but like there was no point in like, in terms of if that shot was shot, it was because I was staying online on MSN, making it very clear that I also liked them or whatever. But the times that people have been quite like out of the blue, I think it kind of takes you by surprise, and you kind of go, oh, like I hadn't really thought of that. So anytime that it's kind of happened to me, I think I've been a bit surprised. Whereas I think if it happened, if I get with someone, I usually think it's just as much me putting in work.
Yeah, sure. So it's not as much out the blue.
Yeah. I mean, I posted a thing last night asking people about like if they fancied anyone, and like if you wanted to put their name in it, and like loads of people did it. It was actually really good.
Really?
Yeah, like people were putting on like actual names of people. I was like loving it. I felt like a matchmaker, but like someone.
And did the people ever that got mentioned message you and be like, who fancies me?
No, because the people that were putting the names, I don't think like follow me, so they'll never know.
So it's fucking pointless, basically.
How nice would it be if it was a thing? It's like those newspaper things, you know, when it'd be like, saw someone on the train to Ealing and they were reading a book I like or whatever. Like I live for that shit. Like I think that's so cute. So that's what I'm trying to do. But someone in that said you to me, like as in like, do you like anyone? Do you want to shoot your shot? Like haha, blah blah blah. And then they said you to me. And then I had that thing of being like, because I've never met them, I was like, oh, like there's
that, and you didn't like the look of their profile.
Well, it was also that he'd been firing into
your pal,
one of my friends. So I was like, do you think that women don't talk? Do you think that we don't know that you fired into like me and my close friends, you know?
He's probably looking for a threesome. Well, I can set this up with these two.
Yeah.
But so that's interesting. So how do you deal with like shooting down a shot that comes in to your defenses?
I'm really good at like smile and wave. Do you know what I mean? Like the penguins in Madagascar. Like I'm very good at being like, oh, that's so nice, and like, oh yeah, like that's really nice for you to say. That's like really flattering, and
Yeah.
let me know like what you're doing, and I'd love to, like, I like to kind of be very kind of like nice around it, and then if I talk so much, then they might not notice that I've not said that I like them back. Do you know what I mean? Like if someone over lockdown messaged me being like, hey, like, just wanted to say that like I really like fancied you, and when we met that time, and I'm just kind of saying this now because we're in lockdown, so there's kind of nothing to lose. Which was so nice. Like, it was a nice ego boost, I'm not gonna lie. And it was like a really nice thing for someone to kind of say. So I was just very much like, oh, like, thank you so much, that's really nice, and it's made my day, and how are you getting on, and what are you doing, and da 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 da. But
Aye.
not kind of being like, yeah, like, once lockdown's over, let's go for a drink, you know?
I know. Well, to be fair, like the lockdown, which we're not really touching on now because obviously, like, we don't know when it's going to be over. But I mean, it has been fucking like 10 months or something now. So, like, it is a good excuse, to be honest, isn't it? It'd be like,
yeah,
oh, not normally I would love to, but I just, I just can't risk meeting up with anyone right now. All that sort of stuff. It's a good get out, to be honest. And again, it's another way to not hurt someone's feelings if they, put themselves out there. You got to respect it. You've got to be like, oh, listen, fair fucks, but I don't feel the same. And but I almost am like so sympathetic towards somebody that puts themselves out there like that you don't want to reject them, even if you're like, I don't want to.
I know, and I feel like doing this podcast
accept.
about shooting your shot, I am such a romantic, and I live for, I don't know, online romance and all that kind of stuff. So I'm very much like, I hope I've made it clear that, like, if someone wanted to shoot their shot, then I would like absolutely love it. It's like,
I think that's your. Is that not just your goal in this entire podcast? Like, I hope I made it very clear to any available single males that I am single.
Yeah. No, but I think I'm all for the fantasy and romance, and I think shooting your shot should be encouraged. I think women should do it more often because I think it feels quite empowering, and that is definitely someone that I want to be. And I think if we do it more, because you know what, like, life's short. We should just
absolutely
go for these things.
I think we're in agreement. I think women should shoot their shot more. Men probably think about doing it a bit less, to be honest. Like, we might have a wee bit, women might have a wee bit less problems, fucking walking down the street if, not everybody, because people that are catcalling and things might think that they're fucking shooting their shot. They're just doing it in an absolutely awful way.
That is the mad thing, isn't it? That it's like, oh, if someone does it, catcalls you, like, what do you want out of that interaction? Yeah, I think it is important to kind of say, because we haven't really touched on it, is that it's whether or not, like, gauge whether or not someone is just living their life. Do you know what I mean? Like, if someone's like in the supermarket and they're just working, and maybe they're like very happily single or very happily in a relationship, like, don't make someone feel uncomfortable. I think that's why online works a wee bit better, because you can just block people.
Yeah, you can't just like put a message in your, ignore folder in the middle of the street, I suppose. I've got, funnily enough, right, because we're on the subject and because it's shooting their shot and we've brought up catcalling, right, I've got a bit of a theory on this, right, because obviously it's a big problem that women need to deal with. You described earlier on that guy in the car. That would never happen the other way around. I would never be stopped by some random girl who comes up and is like, oh, do you know where, Byers Road is? And then goes, actually, no, I just want your number. Women would just never do that. You just aren't as fucking...
You've got shit to do.
Yeah, just not as fucking brass, and it's quite arrogant and all that to do that, really, to be honest, like, and just a bit creepy. But the thing about the catcalling thing, right, is like, so it's obviously a pure drag, right? When you're just trying to go somewhere, you're a woman, you're like, guys are fucking shouting at you, and builders are whistling and all that sort of stuff, right? But as a guy, I feel like sometimes, see, when I see, like, when I'm walking down the street or whatever, and we've all been there, guys and girls and whatever, like, everybody's been there, you walk past somebody, like you're saying, on the tube or whatever, you fall in love on the tube or whatever, and you sort of wish you'd be able to say something, but you don't, right? And see the guys who catcall and all that sort of stuff, I think they do more or less have the same, urge as the person who is like, oh my God, that person's beautiful. Maybe it's a bit more like, oh, do I shag them or something like that? It's a bit more horrible, right? But generally speaking, it's like, you see somebody really attractive, and like, it's like that one guy who's an arsehole, right? The fucking, that's not get that social filter that will catcall a woman and ruin her fucking day, right? But what I would say is, take solace in the fact, right, that for that one guy that has ruined your day by catcalling you, there's probably 10 times the amount of guys that have seen you that day, had the same feeling as him, which is effectively, oh my God, she's lovely. I would probably never get to be with her. But instead of doing what he does and externalizing it and turning it into, well, I'm going to say something to her, because I'm insecure about the fact that I could never be with her. There's loads of guys that just go, and I never will be with her, and be sad and walk about. So for the one guy that has made you sad by catcalling you, you have made 10 to 20, 30, maybe more people, guys, upset that day just at the mere sight of you. So if it makes you hate men sometimes, just realize that you are making more people unhappy.
That is ridiculous.
And I'm saying that's a good thing. I'm saying that's a good thing.
It's mad though. It's like, think about all of the times that no one has said anything to you. You should just know that you
just know they've seen you and maybe went, oh, they're really lovely, but they would never want me. And I'm just going to have that wee moment. And that's that because that's what it comes. Insecurity, it comes from, it's either actions of superiority or feelings of inferiority. And the feelings of inferiority is the people that maybe see it and go, oh, I'd never have a chance, and they'll not do it. And because you don't want to bother somebody, but also because maybe you feel like, oh God, I've never have a chance. But there's that 1 in 10 or whatever it is, 1 in 100, whatever, 1 in 50 guys that do the catcalling and say, pester women, during the day, and like that have saying that they've got the same feelings of inferiority, but they use actions of superiority by trying to make you feel bad, or at least just trying to be like make you uncomfortable, just saying something, that, because do they really think it's going to work? Maybe they do. Maybe they're shooting their shot. I don't know, but probably not. And it's fucking not advised anyway, is it? But as I say, so as a guy who doesn't catcall,
well done. By the way, I just want to say to everyone who's not catcalled, just well done. Like, I think that, we don't applaud men for doing the bare minimum enough.
Exactly.
And, for actually stopping yourself from catcalling, it's very impressive.
Yeah. It's Google's really motto is "Don't be evil," and that's the same for guys. That's it. Congratulations to not all men out there who can't.
Don't speak to me about that.
Oh my God. But I would. But it's like, aye. But don't feel bad about yourself either. That's what I'm saying, because that's a generalization, and I think it's, as I say, it's an insecurity thing that makes people feel one or the other of those things, or do one of those things. And what I'd say is, do you know what? Feel good about yourself, and you won't either, sit and feel sad that you won't get with that attractive person, or bother them and fucking ruin their day. Just be happy in yourself.
Is this your new persona, Mark?
And then you will find someone that you like.
Self-care, self-love, like, just believe in yourself.
Self-help, my new book, coming out.
So slick.
Debate settled.
Debate won by Mark Jennings.
Correct. But but as I say, like, because that is the thing, because like, if you shoot your shot as a guy, sometimes you're like, oh, what distinguishes me, especially if it doesn't go right, because you can never really know how it's going to go. If you get shot down and you're like, oh my God, I've just been a fucking, as bad as those guys that, like pure pest or a woman or whatever. But I think as long as you're within a certain realm of acceptable boundaries and things like that, you can shoot your shot and it's fine. And if it doesn't, doesn't work out, it's fine. But I think, as you say, like, maybe proceed with a wee bit of like, try and contextualize what you're doing. And if you're some, the 50-year-old boss of your 18-year-old fucking co-worker, maybe don't fucking do that shit,
Just take a wee second.
Yeah, maybe analyze the power dynamic and realize that, don't totally do that shit.
Yeah. But I do think, like, the romantic in me thinks, like, I think especially being British, that kind of thing of being like, don't show your emotions, don't put yourself out there, like, like, don't take that risk. And I think it's a shame, because I do think that, like, nice things come out of the, like the ordinary is so mundane. And like, I think that if people were just to kind of be like, do you know what, I'm just gonna kind of go for it, then it would be nice. It's like when, it's like if someone smiles at you in the street, like, it makes you feel good. Yeah. And obviously, like, we're not talking about the creepy, weird, or like fucked up stuff. It's that kind of thing of just being like, do you know what, there's social norms and there's social etiquette. And I think that, like, especially when I worked in the bar, like there could be someone who could be like saying to me like, oh listen, like, thank you, you've been so great today, and like that's nice, and that's kind of like, that's not making me feel uncomfortable, but it is that kind of thing of being like, oh, they recognize that, and you know, they think I'm a nice person, or that I'm a good like bar person or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like those little things that can then just be like, by the way, like, you might have a boyfriend or whatever, but here's my number. I think that's totally fine. And I think that it would be nice if, I mean, obviously the world isn't happening right now, but in the future, people being a bit kind of like, do you know what? Fuck it. Let's go for it.
Definitely. And I think that's a very apt point to leave it at. So that's it for today's episode of Debating Dating. Rachel, it's been a pleasure as always.
Yes, as it is for you.
Oh, very good. The pleasure was all mine. And if you've had a pleasurable experience enjoying this podcast, please do give us a 5-star review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. I don't even know if iTunes exists. I'm going to put it out there, but you hear people saying the iTunes chart still. I think it's Apple Podcast charts now, but whatever you're listening to on, if you can give it a review, please give us 5 stars. You can subscribe to us as well. Do that on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a share on social media. We're at, if you can, at Debating Dating, and just tell your pals and get more people listening. And we'll be back for more and more episodes as things go. And we should also mention there is a YouTube version of this. The video version will be available on YouTube as well.
Yep. you said the stuff that I was going to say, so I was just like,
I did not. I just mentioned I mentioned it.
You said my little line.
No, I never. No, I never.
Did. You said give us a follow at Debating Dating on Instagram.
Aye, but what's your line that you like saying?
My line is give us a follow at Debating Dating on Instagram, and if you'd like to slide into our DMs with any stories, anything that you want us to chat about, or you can email us at debatingdatingpod@gmail.com as well.
Yeah, that's right. And as Rachel says, if you've got any stories you'd like to share with us on anything that we've discussed previously, I'm sure we'll come back to topics. Or if there's certain aspects of dating that you want us to talk about we've not got to yet, or if you've just got some mad shit or questions for us that you want to send in, anything would be very welcome. So again, that's at Debating Dating on Instagram and at debatingdatingpod@gmail.com. Just to
did you not trust the way I said it?
I just feel like sometimes it's a bit more
artist.
Yeah, it comes with a bit more gravitas when the both hosts say it.
How dare you?
But that is us for this week's Debating Dating. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll speak to you soon.